Chapter 11.01 Heaven by Sky. When we arrived in heaven, we all looked like we'd been in a hurricane. Our hair was messed up, but our faces were shining. None of us could quite describe what had happened on the way. I felt as if I'd been inside a flying tent made of flowing silk and water. For Minnow, the whole trip had been like surfing across wild oceans in outer space, accompanied by voices and humming. Ben said that he felt as though he was in heaven all the way, and Frank couldn't remember anything except something like the thrill of being on the superhero ride at King's World. Everyone else was used to taking trips to heaven. They said that every time they go to heaven it's so different, and they've never been able to figure out exactly what the chariot is or how it travels. "I've decided just to love it," said Jax. "There's no point in trying to make sense of it." After we'd disembarked, Ezekiel carefully shook each of our hands. His smile was so warm, I felt that he'd be able to heal people of sickness or sadness simply by looking at them. He reserved his biggest smile for Magal, then he waved goodbye. His chariot moved off, silently this time, and we could hardly remember the sound it had made when it collected us from the Golden House. After Ezekiel had gone, I was both excited and terrified to explore heaven. We'd landed in an exotic garden on the vast plateau of a long mountain high above the sea. Just across from us was an open-air platform with lots of chairs and a big table. To the right of the platform you could see out to the bluest of deep blue seas, flaming with the most chaotic light, and in every other direction incredible landscapes shimmered in the sun. We were all buzzing with excitement. "Heaven," I said, hardly able to keep my heart from leaping out of my body. Angel smiled at me. "Good, isn't it?" she whispered. I nodded. From our vantage point, as I stared out at the view, the landscape kept changing from what I was used to on Van Diemen's Island to somewhere from Narnia, and then to a collage of outer space and somewhere in a fairy tale. Later, the whole thing slowly became a vast savanna with wild animals, and then there were lots of ancient parades. After a while, the scenery looked like the mountains of Japan, followed by China. Then it was like we were in Egypt in the time of the pharaohs, and all of a sudden, the whole place changed to the look of the islands of time, and then it became the gardens of an enormous castle. The plants around us were also shifting. For a while there were large leafy trees and peony roses, all blush and froth. Then there were goddess lilies and love in the mist. Fields and fields of sunflowers stood tall and radiant alongside orange and mango trees. The whole garden was alive with the hum and fuss of 1,000 insects, and countless birds were making odd calls and complicated cries. Suddenly there was a lot of barking. "Molly!" called Blizzard. "Roughfield," I said, scarcely able to contain my excitement. "Ben, look, it's Roughfield." Ben ran over to join us, hugging Roughfield and stroking him. His golden coat shone in the sun. He was so handsome. Blizzard was madly tussling Molly's fur. Her beautiful brown eyes looked as happy as could be. And then, bounding up to us, came a lovely blonde Labrador. "This is Brandy," Molly said by telepathy, "my mother." Blizzard nuzzled both of them while I hugged Roughfield, scarcely able to believe that I was seeing him again. Before I knew it, there was more barking, and Moochie bounded up to us. She was the mirror image of Campese, although much cleaner than her son. Her fur was a stunning white. "Moochie," I said, hugging her over and over. All of them whined and whined with a wild happiness. overjoyed to greet their friends. "I've waited and waited for you," said Molly. Blizzard lay his head against her fur and smiled. "Dearest friend," he whispered. After a lot more hugging, Blizzard and I joined the others at the big table on the platform. Molly, Roughfield, Brandy and Moochie lay sprawled at our feet, their tongues hanging out, happier than happy to be with us. On the table were lots of teacups, and someone had put a big pot of fresh tea right in the middle. It smelled of cinnamon and lavender, tinged with a type of musk. Scones, steaming hot, were nestled in a cloth embroidered with angels and dragons. There was a gold bowl of cream and a silver platter covered with dark cherries and little pots of jam. My heart was beating with expectation. Someone was walking through the garden towards us. A woman appeared. She was about 30 years old and dressed in the most beautiful gown of feathers and golden threads, jewels, roses crafted from twisted fabric, and masses of shimmering silk. She was smiling as she kissed me on both cheeks before embracing Six and Jemima. Her eyes were deep pools. I smiled but felt confused. "I thought we were meeting Athena," I said. "We are," said the woman. "She'll be here soon." "Who are you?" I asked. "Don't you recognise me?" "No," I said, feeling a bit foolish. "I'm Stella. Well, an older version of the Stella you met at Mareskimar. I danced with you at your party." As I stared, I could see that she was Captain Stella. "I know you," said Six, flying over to hover beside Stella. "You're a time pirate, and you captured Isla." "I did," said Stella, smiling. "But did you know that I'm related to Athena?" "You must be our relative too," said Six. "I must be," said Stella, casually pouring tea and offering me a cup. I inhaled the steam and sipped my tea. "Did you die?" I asked Stella. "No. Are you dead?" "I hope not," I said. Stella laughed. "No one has to die to visit heaven." "Don't you have to be extremely good, though?" asked Frank. "Wherever you are, it's always a good idea to take with you the very best of all your possible lives, past, present and future. But nothing will stop you from entering heaven. Believe me, nothing can." We all sat, quietly drinking in Stella's words. "I want to have a good future," said Minnow. "Me too," said Frank. Ben and I nodded in agreement. "I'm sure you'll all have the finest of things in your future and in your present," said Stella. "Look at this moment, right now. Doesn't get much better than this." "Doesn't get much better than this," screeched Jeremiah, swooping in to sit on Stella's shoulder. He was wearing a tiny tricorn hat, just like a pirate captain. "Certainly doesn't," I agreed. Blizzard nodded. "This would have to go down as one of the very best moments of my life," he said. "So good," said Angel, gazing at each of us one by one. We all nodded, feeling as if we were in a trance. On the edge of the garden, I could see someone staring at me, beaming.